As we've discussed all last week, Donald Trump has single handedly triggered a painful and unnecessary national economic catastrophe. As we speak, he is golfing in privilege on a taxpayer subsidized trip to Florida. But from that taxpayer subsidized trip to Florida, he found the time to tweet in truth, "Hang tough, don't worry, the economic revolution won't be easy," as everyone else suffers the consequences of his reckless, stupid choices. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. Donald Trump has not been known for his empathy. Anyone who says that Trump is compassionate and empathetic and cares about the little guy is just full of shit. They're either really stupid or they're full of shit, one of the two. And if you have any doubts about that, look no further than this, as Mediaite reports. Trump tells Americans to hang tough through economic revolution as stocks plummet amid tariffs. Won't be easy. Thank you, Donald. Trump told Americans to hang tough as stocks are plummeting following his implementation of tariffs on a number of countries. Quote, "China's been hit much harder than the USA, not even close," Trump wrote on Saturday morning. Quote, "They and many other nations have treated us unsustainably badly." China implemented a 34% tariff on U.S. imports in response to Trump's tariffs, which he signed on Wednesday, a day he's repeatedly referred to as Liberation Day. Despite uncertainty in the markets, Trump has maintained that his use of tariffs will lead to better trade deals and a manufacturing boom in the U.S. On Truth Social, Trump touted his companies making investments in the United States, and told people to hang tough through what he promises will be an economic revolution. On Friday, the Dow Jones was down about 2,200 points, or 5.5% at closing. The NASDAQ and S&P 500 also both closed down at 5.8 and 5.9% respectively. It was the worst trading week since March 2020, which is when the COVID pandemic began in earnest, and that was the last time Donald Trump was president and presided over a recession, right? Now, as bad as that was, at least we could say, well, he didn't cause the recession, he just mismanaged the pandemic, for which he should be rightly blamed. In this case, it's even worse because he is creating out of whole cloth a potential recession for no damn reason. It's not like you can blame it on a pandemic. Trump claimed that past trade deals with the United States made the United States into the whipping post for other nations, and his current tariff war will end that. So this is the full tweet for full truth. China has been hit much harder than the USA, not even close. They and other nations have treated us unsustainably badly. We have been the dumb and helpless whipping post, but not any longer. We are bringing back jobs and businesses like never before. Already more than $5 trillion of investment and rising fast. This is an economic revolution and we will win. Hang tough. It won't be easy, but the end result will be historic. We will make America great again. Now, obviously, many of these claims of economic investment are unsubstantiated. Trump has very often tried to take credit for the investments that were brought under President Biden's CHIPS and Science Act, which continue to develop under Donald Trump, but Biden was the one who got the ball rolling. Trump is allowing it to coast until he doesn't. So take his claims with a grain of salt. But this is his response while he golfs in privilege on a taxpayer-subsidized trip. So, having said that, the Wall Street Journal editorial board, and I've been referring to them quite a bit because they're a sister publication of Fox News, and they're one of the most reputable conservative outlets in existence. And again, I don't agree with the Wall Street Journal on many things, not being a conservative, but I like to use conservatives' own words against them. I love to use conservatives against Donald Trump because, again, to the extent that anybody in the Trump camp gives a damn about what is said about Trump, the only people they will potentially care about are other right-wingers, other conservatives. So with that in mind, here is an opinion post from yesterday written by the editorial team at the Wall Street Journal. Trump owns the economy now. He can try to blame the Federal Reserve, but the tariff blunder is his alone. Markets continued to tumble on Friday, but hey, not to worry, at least the March job numbers were good. That's the view from the White House, where Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt crowed Friday that, quote, the economy is starting to roar, and, quote, Trump's push to onshore jobs here in the United States is working. Leavitt needs to please her boss, but yikes. Someone should tell her the March jobs estimate was made before Trump's tariff barrage. Markets, for their part, are making a bet on the future. The 228,000 job gain did beat expectations, but the manufacturing job boom still hasn't arrived, with only 1,000 net new jobs in the month. And I'll also point out that March was the highest month in years for layoffs. I think some like 250,000 layoffs in the private sector. So you have to Factor that in as well. The real message from the jobs report is that the labor market and economy were in good shape in March. That's not necessarily good news for Trump if both now hit the skids after Trump launches his trade war with the world. Trump may try to blame President Biden or someone else, but the public knows it's the Trump economy now. It's a mixed blessing for Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, who knows he now has an excuse for a slowing economy or a bump in inflation. On the other hand, he has to steer policy through the tariff rapids. Quote, while uncertainty remains elevated, it is now becoming clear that the tariff increases will be significantly larger than expected, Mr. Powell told the conference in Virginia on Friday. Quote, the same is likely to be true of the economic effects, which will include higher inflation and slower growth, meaning the Trump-appointed chairman of the Federal Reserve, who single-handedly, or I say most proximately shapes monetary policy in the United States as chairman of the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve, Trump appointed him, and he's saying that these actions will likely lead to higher inflation and slower growth. Stagflation. But Powell implied that the Fed may not ride to Trump's rescue if tariffs lead to economic stagflation. He said the Fed will continue with a cautious approach on interest rates, which makes sense given the two-sided risks of rising prices and slowing growth. That appears to have set off Trump, who posted a broadside on Truth Social after Powell's remarks, which we covered in a video yesterday with my Live and Learn co-host, the economist Econoboy. Trump always favors lower interest rates no matter what the economic facts, but his post suggests that he may be more worried than he admits about the impact of his tariffs on growth. He purports not to care about the markets these days, but you can bet he's paying attention to him. The two-day decline of 10.5% in the S&P 500 since his Wednesday afternoon announcement isn't a vote of confidence in Trump's tariffs or policy judgment. And then again, it brings up how, so much of the plunge was shaped by the fact that China retaliated. Trump clearly expected China to blink. They didn't, and they announced retaliatory tariffs of their own. And it concludes with this. Trade wars are easy to start, but they can be hard to stop once retaliation gets rolling. Trump started this war, and he owns whatever happens next to jobs, prices, and economic growth. Very true. And I'll also point out, just to add the cherry on top of the sundae, also courtesy of the Wall Street Journal, one of their own surveys was pretty devastating for Donald Trump. Again, this is a conservative, right-wing, Trump-supporting publication. They want Trump to succeed. They preferred him to the Democratic counterparts. He's a Republican. He is more proximate to the conservative cause than any Democrat. And yet, he's screwing up a lot. As they note, Americans were souring on Trump's economic plans even before the tariff bloodbath. A majority of voters oppose Trump's levies on imported goods and disapprove of how he's handling inflation and prices. Americans elected Trump with a favorable opinion of his economic plans, but his expansive push for tariffs has helped turn that confidence into skepticism, a new Wall Street Journal poll finds. Tepid support for tariffs of the past year has become disapproval, with 54% of voters opposing Trump's tariffs on imported goods, 12 points more than those who support his plans. 3/4 of voters say that tariffs will raise prices on things they buy, up from 68%, rather, from those who said so in January. And again, one big one here. Do you approve or disapprove of the job Donald Trump is doing? He's underwater. He's underwater even in this right-wing conservative Wall Street Journal poll. Where's the exact thing here? Let me get it overall. Yeah. Among all voters, 46% approve of Trump's overall job performance and 51% disapprove. So he's underwater even with the Wall Street Journal survey. Folks, this is terrible. Again, to recap, Trump, from a privileged, taxpayer-subsidized sanctuary, is telling you, the American people, who are the only people who will suffer the consequences of his choices, he's not going to. He's rich. He is flirting with the idea of somehow unlawfully staying in power, but in theory, if he adheres to the Constitution, he doesn't have to run for re-election because he's term limited. So he doesn't need your votes in 2028. So he's rich, doesn't need your votes, and yet he's making all the decisions for which you will pay the brunt of it, even if you're a Trump supporter, even if you're, in a red rural state. You're suffering the consequences of Donald Trump's unilateral, foolish decision. And the polls reflect that people aren't happy. And yet, he's doubling down. Don't worry about it. Hang tough. You hang in there. Meanwhile, I got to go play another round of golf. I mean, the lack of empathy is... if it weren't Trump, it would be career ending. But again, we've priced it in. You and I have priced it in. You have priced it in, American conservative voter. You don't care. And now that lack of empathy is kicking you in the ass. financially at any rate. And based on the current trajectory, it's going to get a hell of a lot worse. He doesn't care. But that's where we are. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.